Hey y'all, welcome back to Real Sisters Rewind, back to the 80s. I'm Amanda, and I'm here with my sister Missy. If you're new here, we're two sisters who love reliving some of the best movies ever made, the unforgettable classics of the 80s.
And if you're loving these throwback reviews as much as we are, right, sister,
Yep.
we'd appreciate it if you'd give us a 5-star review. Wherever it is you're listening, you can do that. Plus, don't forget, we're sending out Real Sisters stickers for reviews. So just snap a pic of your review, send it to hello@realsistersrewind.com, and we'll mail you one.
All right, Missy, as we said, we're switching things up this week. Today's movie is intense,
Boy,
action-packed. No, you love that action, and full of unexpected heroes.
and thank goodness, Amanda, we are not tackling it alone.
Thank goodness. We are so excited to have our very special guest, my very dear high school friend and still friend, Joey Hood, who's here to bring some extra insight and fun to this episode. And I have to say, Joey is an actor himself, and so he has a lot of wonderful inside scoop to bring, but I do have to tell everybody, Joey, this was one of the choices of 80s films that you wanted to rewatch when I threw the choices out. So you are to blame for that.
I am very much to blame. Hi, real sisters. It is such an honor to be with y'all. Like, I, I don't even know how often this happens, but it just really isn't that often that you get to be a guest on one of your favorite podcasts. I listen
Oh,
to y'all every Monday morning when I'm at work, but we don't have to talk about that.
well, Joey, welcome, welcome. It's been like decades since I've seen you, my friend.
It has been more than 30 years.
It's crazy, but we're so glad you're here. I personally am so glad you're here. I was in church and earlier and saying a little prayer like, thank you, Lord, for bringing Joey because you know, if you've heard the podcast, this is not my favorite genre. I'm probably going to be a little bit of a grouchy goat in it some. Oh my gosh. But Joey, you are an actor. You have served in the military. Thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've done. And just know we're so glad you're here.
Well, I need to correct one thing straight out of the gate. I was a military contractor. I worked
Okay.
alongside soldiers and Department of the Army civilians for over
Okay.
10 years.
Well, you still served. You served
I
those serving. So thank
definitely,
you for that.
definitely, absolutely. As far as like my professional experience, when I was 21 years old, I moved to Austin, Texas to become a professional actor. And originally I thought that was going to be a stopover on my way to LA. And it wasn't. It was a permanent stop, and I did theater, film, commercials, modern dance, if you can believe
Wow.
that.
I
I did.
can't.
I had about a 5-year stint where I did modern dance, and loved it because it played right into my athleticism. But the bulk of my credits have been in voiceover, and that's something that I still do today.
Very cool. And you look a little bit like Steve Carell with that
You
beard
know,
you're sporting.
I've heard that. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's a great
We
compliment.
I'll
But
take it.
love we love
we
Steve
love
Carell.
him. Yes, we do love him. Well, real fans, grab your gear and join us as we dive into this unforgettable film. Let's go back to 1984.
All right, y'all, let's set the stage for Red Dawn. This movie hit theaters on August 10th, 1984. I was just short of turning 8, so I believe you would have been too, Joey. We would have
Yeah,
both been 7, about to turn 8,
exactly.
because we both have fall birthdays. So we obviously, unless I'm missing something, did not see it in theaters. Or did you, Joey?
I did
No,
not see it in theaters. No.
no. Okay.
I
Missy,
did. I
I
did.
would, okay.
I was
And
16 and I
yeah,
saw it in theaters.
Oh
great.
goodness.
I want to hear this. And well, I'll say that. Go ahead. Tell us about your experience, and I need to add something important to that.
So I wasn't really sure where I was going to share this story, but we might as well talk about it just right out of the gate. So I went to see it in theaters with high school friends and don't even really remember seeing it in theaters, but what I remember is the absolute nightmares. Really, the only time in my life I had a night terror, Amanda. And I was, in my room in that front corner of the house, and I woke up screaming. It's not like I, woke up and then got scared. Like I woke myself up screaming, and daddy ran into the bedroom, and I was crying
You were
about
like, the
the
parachutes are
the
coming.
parachutes, yes, which we'll get into, but that was the night terror. So, yes, I saw it in theaters, and yes, it
Do you
haunted
remember if
me.
it was Hardy Street Cloverleaf or Broad
Ooh,
Acres?
I want to know
I
this one.
I think it was Hardy Street Cinema because,
Oh
Oh,
and
boy.
that makes it all the worse because to
I
me
was
that
just
was a
about the
scary
worst one.
cinema. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, it was scary, and if
You had
you
to go up
had to
those
go to the
stairs.
bathroom, you had to go up the stairs. Yes. So,
Yeah.
all right, so. I was 16. The movie was coming out August 10th, which was, just before school started or just as school was starting. And so
No, back then it would have been well before. We didn't start until later, but yeah.
school back to school time. And
Yeah.
Amanda, I was thinking about that and the time and things that were popular. And you went to school that next year, I believe, with a Cabbage Patch Kids lunchbox. It was like all pastel colors. Do you remember
Yep.
that?
I sure do. I sure do. I had a really traumatic Cabbage Patch Kid experience, as you know, and I was probably so happy to have that Cabbage Patch Kids
Because
lunchbox
it was
because
a real
it was
Cabbage Patch
real,
Kid.
probably had the real stamp of approval. If we were 7, what would we have been, like third grade? Going
Probably
into third grade?
second grade, probably, huh?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would have.
second grade. We'd be going into second grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we're about to turn 8. We've been going into third
Oh,
because
that's
I
true. You're
remember.
right.
Yeah.
You're right, Joey. Y'all would have been.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Well,
Okay.
I know thinking about starting school that year, a lot of my guy friends started school sporting a new pair of Air Jordans. They had just come out that April as school was wrapping up. So they probably saved their money all summer so they could start out in a pair. Joey, did they make them small enough for you? Would you have been sporting them? Would you have wanted
And
to
he
sport them?
and he was a little tight.
I
You were
was
a
a
little
little. I
you
was
were a little
much
tight.
smaller than most of the guys my age. I did not have a pair of Air Jordans, I don't think, until like well into the 90s. Like,
But you did have a pair at some point.
I did. I
Was
think
it
I was
like a
probably
dream?
still. Well, I think I was more excited about the parachute pants that I was probably still rocking going into school that particular
But
fall.
it's funny you said that, Missy, because I didn't even know I didn't know they were a thing until the 90s. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I think that's crazy.
Came out in April of that year.
That's amazing.
And they're still a
Well,
thing.
oh, for sure. Um, well, let's talk about something big that was going on in 1984. Well, all of the 80s, actually. That Cold War
Nope.
was,
Nope. Nope. No, I veto that. The entire podcast is going to be about war. Let's focus this section on more fun, like pop culture movie stuff. Please,
okay,
dear
okay,
Lord,
okay, okay.
please.
Okay, but I will say because of this situation with the Cold War, I will say people were genuinely worried about things like nuclear war and Soviet threats and
Yeah,
all that really
thus my
scary
night
stuff.
terror. Yes.
Exactly. And this movie played right into that fear. It
Yes.
kind of is weird that it even, I don't know, like I think it's kind of weird that it even like happened and came out in theaters
I
because
know.
it was such a scary time for this like thing to happen.
Right.
Um yeah, I think it felt really felt really real. But I will add something else that was kind of heavy at that time that was a scandal that we were dealing
Oh,
with.
now bring on a scandal. Go
Yep,
ahead.
right here in the old US of A. This was not an international scandal. It was right here at home. And it was See if you remember this, y'all. Vanessa Williams.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Miss America.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
On the cover of People magazine on August 6th,
Hmm.
1984, and the quote on the front says, "I've hit rock bottom now."
Uh,
I do remember that.
wasn't it because she was on the cover and the centerfold of
A
another
Playboy,
magazine?
a Playboy. I don't know if
It
she was on the
was.
cover, but she was in Playboy,
She
right?
I
was.
want to say it was. Now this is an important distinction around the time. It was Penthouse.
Yes. I
Oh,
think and it is important. That
Yeah.
is important. Maybe I'll make a note to just be sure, but it was something like that.
yes,
It
it
was
was.
something like that.
I have a family that I was babysitting at the time, and I opened a drawer, and there was that
Why
magazine
were you
in
opening
the
drawers?
in the kitchen. It was like in the desk area. I was
What?
looking for a pen to leave a note. I mean, I'm sure they
Kitchen.
probably bought it. I don't think it was like bought for. I
You
think
think
it
it
was
was bought
bought
because it was
because of
Was
the
it
Vanessa
like a
hype
Williams?
of
collector's item?
yeah, because of the hype of it all. Like, I'm going to buy this and show my friends. But I remember at 16 years old, it freaked me out even to see the magazine cover in there. I like closed the door and was like, scared I was going to get in trouble because I saw it. But I
It
that
was.
was
Y'all,
then.
isn't that wild? Like I remember that was absolutely just awful. I mean, it was just, I
Oh
mean, she
yeah.
had hit rock bottom. It was so scandalous, or
Yeah.
yeah, it was so scandalous. And that's so just different from how
Didn't
it
they
is
take her
now.
crown?
They
I
Yes,
did.
thought they did.
They definitely did.
they
Yeah.
took her crown.
They
She
took
bounced,
her crown.
they bounced, she bounced back though.
She did. She did okay.
She
She
did.
did just fine. So don't
she
worry.
she had a good career. It's almost like public, like outcry. It's almost like we all caught up to like, okay, well, this kind of happens all the time now. It's not that big a
Well, you
deal.
know what, Joey? You saying that it really was probably one of those first incidences, is that right? Yes, where like it was almost the first glimpse into cancel culture, wasn't it,
Absolutely.
y'all?
Absolutely.
I
Oh
mean, there's
yeah.
a
Yeah.
profound thought I just had, but I think
Yeah,
it
I'm usually the
was.
one who does that.
You are.
But as we said, she didn't get canceled. She
That's
She
bounced right
right.
didn't.
on back. She
That's
She
did
had
just
a
right.
good
fine.
old career.
So
She
we
did
we
all
got it.
kinds of stuff.
We got over it real quick.
Okay, so we're dealing with some dark subject matter today, so I'm going to try to keep it a little bit lighter. Missy, I thought about you throughout this whole week because I know this isn't your genre, but then I figured she went through Nightmare on Elm Street, she going to be okay. Okay,
And
so
Indiana Jones.
right,
That one
right.
was
I
fun.
mean,
That was torture.
but do either of you know a famous commercial that came out right around this time? I'll give you a hint. It had a funny grandma type woman who went around to different fast food places and asked
Oh,
a very specific question.
oh, I know. Do you know it, Amanda?
I'm thinking of the one where I know this can't be it because it wasn't fast food, where she like came around the tree and it
No.
was like something like
I know.
she like snuck around the tree,
I do not remember
but
that.
it's not fast
No,
food,
this
so that
was literally. All
can't
right, Joey. Is it? It was. Where's the beef?
That's the one. Ding, 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 ding.
Yes, that was.
Was that
huge.
Wendy's?
It was
It
for Wendy's, and
was.
she would go around to all the places, and she'd open the burger, and it would have
Where's
a
the beef?
and some meat. Yes, there you go. There's our voice actor. Do
And
it
it
again, Joey.
became, y'all, where's the beef was like you would just randomly say it, like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, where's
I
the beef?
know.
Like it was like a thing you would just say.
All right,
Yeah, you
Joey.
could just,
Joey, say it.
where's the beef? Where's the beef?
That's it.
Totally.
And that's like, I mean, can you imagine this woman? Like, they cast her in this role. They're like, listen, we don't want you to change anything about the way you are. We just want you to say this thing. And I hope she made a bazillion dollars because,
I
I
do
mean,
She
too.
probably did. You know what her voice is kind of like now that you say that is kind of like the ET lady
uh,
Yeah, Pat Welsh.
with
she
the
kind of reminded
gravelly
me.
voice.
She kind of reminded me of Mama Fratelli from the Goonies. But
Oh, that too. That
Yeah,
too.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
maybe I shouldn't say too much about that because the real sisters might have to cover that one.
We are.
We'll
We're gonna
definitely
definitely
do the
cover
Goonies.
Goonies. Yeah. But y'all, even though When Doves Cry from the Purple Rain soundtrack was number one, Ghostbusters took over that number one spot.
Mm.
And
Who you gonna
that's
call?
Ghostbusters. hmm
Mm-hmm.
hmm we'll definitely cover Ghostbusters. But at this time, like I said, MTV was a big deal in full swing, even though Night Tracks was still kicking. And everything was neon colored and stacked with shoulder pads.
True, but Red Dawn certainly wasn't on the fashion scene. There was
Mm-mm.
nothing flashy in that movie, but it was nominated for one award and it didn't win. However, Red Dawn did make history as the very first PG-13 movie.
And thank goodness, because there have been multiple times we've talked about movies in the 80s where the ratings have seemed kind of off,
Yes.
and PG-13 offered a good compromise.
Yes. And here's a fun fact. That rating was introduced, Amanda, exactly like you said. There had been some, kind of jukey things happening because parents complained that movies like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, they were just too intense for kids. And so Red Dawn really kicked off a whole new era in filmmaking.
Yeah, remember when we did Gremlins, we talked about this. It was also in 84. And that was another one where parents were questioning. Because remember, I said I had to like beg my friend's mom to let her go
Yes.
see it and
Oh,
all that.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
And it was that same sort of like on the fence of it's not really an R, but it's not really kid appropriate either.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all, I don't know if it was this kid appropriate because it scared the bejeebus out of me.
Gremlins did.
Gremlins did? Oh,
Me too.
yeah.
Me too.
When Stripe and all them came out, whew, it was crazy. But back to Red Dawn, it is so worth noting that this was a pretty lean production by Hollywood standards at the time, and it had a budget of just $17 million and ended up grossing 38 million domestically. And that's pretty impressive for a film with such a dark, serious subject and tone,
Mm.
That's you said 17 million. That must have
17 million.
gone on, that must have gone towards the tanks.
And the explosions. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe
And
Ray Dean Stanton got some, but
and my counseling bills for night terrors.
probably.
Well, the tone was thanks to director John, how do you say that? Milius?
I think Milius.
Milius, who co-wrote the script with Kevin Reynolds. Now, I gotta just say a little thing here. There are some holes in the script that I'm gonna need to discuss that I was a little bit like not sure what happened there. So y'all may be able to fill in some of the blanks if I missed it, but I think there's some
I'll
gaps.
help you out. I'll help
We're
you
gonna
out
try.
with that.
We're going to try.
But I hadn't heard of either of them. And what I found is that they are both known for these types of patriotic yet apocalyptic, larger than life type of movies. And the runtime clocks in at 1 hour and 54 minutes.
Way too long for me, is that's what I'll say. I mean, there was one point when I was watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's 27 minutes left. Oh my Lord.
You called me when there was an hour left, and you're like, I'm still got an hour.
Bless you. Bless you.
Bless your heart. All right, y'all, let's talk about the cast. The film did have a good cast. I mean, a stacked lineup of rising stars. You had Patrick Swayze, Charlie Sheen, C. Thomas Howell, Leah Thompson, and Jennifer Grey. It's kind of like Brat Pack meets World War III.
Exactly. But these actors, we're seeing these guys that we know super well now, but these were when they were puppies.
Right.
They didn't know much about anything, and like you could just see them like finding their oats as actors on screen while it was happening. But they went all in. I mean, the whole cast, they went through military style training for 8 weeks before filming, learning survival skills and tactics, just trying to make their performances more authentic, you know. And I mean, that's dedication.
You're
I
right.
mean,
I heard, Joey, that C. Thomas Howell had been a rodeo cowboy.
he still
And
is.
oh, is he? And
He
well, I
still
heard
is.
that he like helped teach the rest of the cast to ride horses.
Sure did.
That's interesting because at one point they were like swinging. It's when they picked up the girls and they were
Yes.
swinging them up onto the horse. I
You
was
could
like, whoa.
tell.
Like, whoa. It was like very legit. And y'all, Patrick Swayze, I feel like he's always got issues, got frostbite during the film. And a few years later, he said it still felt like someone shoving toothpicks up his fingernails when he got too cold. Like it was the residual effects, I guess.
But that's
I mean,
Patrick Swayze. I mean, we know these, like, that falls right in line with everything we know about Patrick Swayze.
I know. It made me think about Missy when we talked about Dirty Dancing and then filming in that lake when it was so cold
Yeah.
that he felt the toothpicks during that time.
I bet
Look,
he did.
I'm so cold natured. I felt the toothpicks going in my fingernails just looking at the cold. I mean, I couldn't have survived it. I just really don't believe that I could have survived it. Could have survived it. So, all right. So here's a fun tidbit. Red Dawn was filmed in New Mexico, and they transformed parts of Las Vegas, New Mexico, by the way. How'd you
Oh,
like that?
okay.
Into a fictional town of what we know now as Calumet, Colorado. And they got local high school students to be extras in the invasion scenes.
I bet
I
that
wonder
was
if they
a
had
day.
nightmares.
That would
They
have been
got-
so fun.
They got out of school, though. They probably love that.
Exactly. That would have been so fun. I wondered about that. I wondered if they had like people in the town as extras. Red Dawn wasn't just your average action movie. It really struck a chord with moviegoers and became a big deal in its time.
It really did, even though I didn't like it. It was a big deal.
But that's what I was gonna say, Missy. Like I remember it being a big deal to you, and you being scared of it made me scared of it. I didn't see it when I was young, but I do remember either it was on our Betamax or on HBO,
Sony Betamax.
seeing that first part where the what do you call them? Parachute.
paratroopers.
Yeah, the paratroopers land and being absolutely horrified, but I was partially scared because you were so scared.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this movie itself and see why it's still such a standout to many and remains in our memories even all these years later. All right, y'all, let's dive into the chaos and courage of Red Dawn. The movie kicks off with some pretty chilling title cards, setting up an alternate 1980s America. Basically, the world's in turmoil. Soviets invading Europe, communist revolutions in Central America, and even Mexico's fallen into a coup. NATO dismantled. It's just the U.S. left to fend for itself. And here is a question I already have.
Okay.
The
Joey's
whole-
going to answer it for you.
The whole entire movie, and I'm asking now to make sure I didn't miss it. The whole entire movie, I am thinking, where is our military?
All the time.
So there
But-
is there an answer? Did I miss that in the story? Like, did it get explained? And I
It
just missed
does, but it is so fast and it is so complex. And I can tell you one of the reasons why it is so complex.
Okay.
This movie was developed originally as a Lord of the Flies type anti-war movie, right?
I thought at one point, it's funny you said that, Joey, because at one point I was like, oh, this is going to go Lord of the Flies.
Which is great because we both had to read Lord of the Flies in the same class. So we know all
Exactly.
about this, right?
The Cliff Notes.
So
No.
when it got developed into the script that we know as today, a former staff member from the Nixon White House named General Alexander Haig got involved and shopped the script to some political think tanks in order to come up with this plausible way that the United States can be invaded. And
Could
so
like get into this predicament.
So what we have in Red Dawn is what this guy, General Alexander Haig, came up with. And that was that NATO had been disbanded, that our military was on the coasts fighting things off. And when the Soviets and the Central Americans came up through Mexico, they divided the country in half. And so that's how we're supposed to be left with 10 kids in Colorado fighting off all of the communist nations. That's how we got here, people.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so glad you told me that, because the whole time I'm like, where is the military?
So
This
complicated.
I know
This is
it was
wild.
definitely a complicated order in this film. But Amanda, it starts out as you said. It has those title cards, which I need. It was like reading a foreign language to me. But it segues from that into our peaceful little mountain town. And at first it all seems normal. Like we see families walking in the neighborhood and moms taking their kids to school. It's your average day, and we see Jed, who is the big brother, played by Patrick Swayze, pulling up to the school right by the football field.
Looking super cute, by the way.
Super cute. He's dropping off Jed. Jed is dropping off his brother Matt and a friend at school, and they're talking about the score that's still on the, what do you call
Scoreboard.
that? Scoreboard on the football field. So it seems pretty normal at first.
Right. And so like Matt and his friend Robert head to their history class, and they listen to a lecture about Genghis Khan, which I'm pretty sure was some kind of foreshadowing, like maybe this is how the Wolverines are going to have to fight later. But it's during this class when it happens. It all comes down. The paratroopers start dropping onto the school football field, and at first, like, everybody's calm, like that's curious, what's going on out there? And then, nope. Those paratroopers are armed, and the teacher's the first one to go.
Freaked me out, freaked America out. It still freaks me out. And I have to say this, because just before Christmas, you guys remember everything was coming out about all of the drones in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't help but think, if Red Dawn, like a modern version was made now, would it be, instead of those parachutes falling, that you would see drones coming down?
Oh, probably.
The rooms of the school.
Ew, don't.
I know, scary, right? Well, all right, so
coming from the one who had nightmares about this movie.
I know, but you look, those drones are giving people nightmares. All right, so here's a fun fact. We'll keep it light for a moment. 5 of those 36 paratroopers in the beginning of the film, they got blown off course. Like as much as a mile off course during filming, and one of them got stuck in a tree. It probably wasn't funny to them at the time, but they literally had to convince locals that he wasn't an enemy soldier. Can you imagine? Like, I'm just an actor. Let me show you my Screen Actors Guild
card. Yes.
That could have been bad.
Well, it's pure panic after that. After the paratroopers hit, and they do have the sort of shootout. It isn't a sort of, it's a shootout at school. And I have to say something here. This was the only part of the movie, when the paratroopers land and they have the shootout at school, that was really scary to me. And I don't think they could even get away with that with the movie now, at least at a school, because of it made me think about school shootings, which was not a thing then, right? No. So it just was really like, this is something that we can't even imagine could happen. So I think they would just have to change, that.
It would be like the equivalent of like putting walkie-talkies in place of guns and things like that, like in E.T.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this part was really scary to me. And
it was hard to watch.
I did not remember the whole movie that well from when I'd seen it when I was younger. And so I was gearing up. Like, when I saw this, I was like, oh man, this is about to be going down. Mm-hmm. And It didn't stay. It didn't stay that scary. Thank goodness.
No, it didn't.
But like I said, it was pure panic from that point on. And Jed, remember, he dropped the brother and the friend off, drives back just in time to pick up the boys in his big old truck. And they race through town, witnessing the invasion firsthand. It's a full blown, full out invasion. It's not just a few of these soldiers that paratrooped in, it's like occupation. There are tanks in the streets, people being rounded up, and it's really scary. And those tanks ate up some of that $17 million budget.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you just think that all happened from the time the first, bell rang for first period before they even got out of there. It was fast.
Yeah.
But the boys, they're flying out of town. There's chaos everywhere. And they make it to Robert's dad's gas station out on the highway, just out of town. And this is where they stock up on supplies. They're getting the guns and the food, lots of soup, saw that, lots of soup and olives, ammo, and lots of Coca.
Olives.
And
Coke and Sprite.
And Robert's dad, who's played by Ben Johnson, he's the one that tells them, you head out for the mountains and you wait it out. Like I think he said something like, don't come back till you hear from me. Well, how am I going to hear from you? Especially
Exactly.
when something happens.
100%. I thought the same thing. I did want to say something about this one part. I did get like my childhood vibes when I was watching them gather supplies. It reminded me, like, that was something we used to love to do as kids, is like survival games. And like even Joey, it made me think about the article that I just sent you that one of our other high school friends just sent, when we would be out like the whole week during homecoming doing the pranks. But it was that same kind of like, get all your survival gear.
Gearing up.
Running the neighborhoods, we're wreaking havoc. But it was that same like mentality of like stocking up and
It is the
having your
same
stuff.
energy. It's the same
Yes,
energy. And
we
actually,
loved
like,
it.
this is an early example in film. So we have something called a trope. Now, in something that happened in a lot of 80s movies, I'm thinking Rambo, I'm thinking Commando, when Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to the military surplus store and steals all the guns and weapons that he's going to need to go get his daughter back. So here you're seeing another version of this trope, this thing that gets repeated throughout movies in the 80s. This is the supply scene. This is we're going to get geared up. We're going to get all the things that we need to go out and fight these communists. And that includes Sprite and Coke and a football.
Yeah, the football.
I thought the football
you're
was,
right.
I thought the football was going to come into like some big foreshadowing, whatever, like, because they show the close up of the hand grabbing the football. And then, no, they just had a football game later on. That's really all the football was for.
Well, they needed to bond. I mean, if you're going to be surviving up there until you hear back from Robert's dad, you're going to need to have some bonding time.
And something to keep you busy and to have fun.
Yeah, like you're going to have lots of Campbell's soup cans and olives. And don't forget, get some of that TP because I ain't going to use no leaves. That, I believe, was a direct quote from Robert in the movie. Yeah, so they've geared up. They've got their supplies, so they're heading out to the mountains to wait it out. So once they're out in the mountains here, Jed sort of becomes the de facto leader, right? And they're focused on just surviving.
But wait, don't y'all think that he's the oldest, so it kind of makes sense, right? Because he's the one, he's not in college. I mean, he's not in high school.
Right. It kind of does make sense, but then,
But then maybe Robert's dad should have said, like, you know what? I'm an adult. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to put more supplies in my vehicle, and I'm going to be there with you boys.
Again, we're encountering holes in this particular script.
We're suspending belief for the story. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Totally. So, and also during this time, like, we see Robert, like young C. Thomas Howell. Like, you got to imagine that C. Thomas Howell, Patrick Swayze, and Darren Dalton, he plays Daryl. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but all three of them were in The Outsiders together.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You got to imagine that they just came off a movie together. And then here they are a year, maybe later, shooting Red Dawn. And so you start to see like little baby C. Thomas Howell, like he's getting older, and his character, like he was obviously cast for his innocence, you know.
Yeah, he had
Yeah,
that baby face
baby.
innocent.
Absolutely. I mean, he
Yeah,
just played Pony Boy.
right.
So here we have C. Thomas Howell, and he's growing up, but now we're out in the mountains and we're having to survive. And Robert C. Thomas Howell, he shoots his first deer, and then he's got to drink the blood.
Okay, I have a question here.
Okay.
Like, okay,
Okay.
growing up in the South, all three of
Yes.
us grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
and people went and they hunted. Our
Mm-hmm.
daddy hunted. It was,
Did you
hunting
hunt?
was
I don't remember. Did you ever hunt, Joey?
I dove hunted. We never deer
That's
hunted as
right. I
kids.
remember that. Yeah. Okay, you're right.
okay. So when they would go out hunting, and like, daddy would always take like the friends' kids and stuff like that. If someone shot a deer, they would take some of the blood and like put it like stripes on its face, and they would say, "We're blooding you," I think is what they
Yeah.
called it.
Yep.
Never, ever, ever do I have I heard of drinking the deer's blood. What the heck?
I got to tell you, it was a thing.
It
I
really
believe it.
was
In
for
the
real,
80s,
Joey.
it was a thing.
I
And
believe it.
now when we talk about that kind of thing, like when we do like a lot of times these days when like a young person will take their first deer, they will do that and they will put a little, stripes on your nose and on your cheeks. It's just a way of kind of indoctrinating you into the world of you've taken this animal that now you're going to use every part of that you can. It's just
Right,
like
right.
that kind of deal. But in the 80s, we didn't know anything about some of the parasites that some of these wild animals are carrying that are
That's what I was thinking. I was like, they're
very,
gonna
very
get so
dangerous.
sick.
Brain wasting disease is one of them to be really afraid of. But
Oh my
but no,
gosh.
that was like in way out in the country. Yeah, you'd have some people that would do that. It was kind of a rite of passage, but you
That
don't
was
hear so
really
much
that
about
was
that anymore.
really really gross.
It was
And that's the point where that's the moment where I was like, oh, this is going Lord of the Flies.
a little bit
It was
like,
Ugh,
going Lord of the
ugh.
Flies on
where's
me.
Piggy?
Well, I
Hmm.
was going like, "Where's the bathroom? I need to go throw up."
Yeah, it was
Um,
gross. It was really gross.
So the group, as you said, Joey, they're surviving, but it seems like there's a little tension in the group too, especially
Mhm.
with Daryl, who we ultimately learn he's the mayor's son, and definitely doesn't seem to be cut out for this. What would you call it, Joey? Like guerrilla life,
Uh,
Survival.
yes, well,
survival,
survival, but like
guerrilla.
he's also like out in the woods, like trying to be like a student body president. Uh,
Yes, let's all
it's
come
like,
together and make
hey,
our plan.
Daryl, all that's out the window, buddy. We need to focus on surviving. Yeah.
Oh, there's definitely conflict.
Well, Jed and Matt sneak back into town to see what's happened. They've decided we got to go check it out. We got to go see what's going on. And they
Well, didn't
find
they decide to go though after they were like, we've only got a few olives left?
Oh yeah, I mean they were like, I'm getting
We
sick
better
of
go
this
on back
tomatoes,
into
this tomato soup or whatever, because they had been just like really living off that
Yeah.
for a while. And I was interested. I was like, ooh, what are they going to see when they go back? And basically, they
Oh,
found that their town was under like occupation.
yes.
But it wasn't like everybody was dead. They were still living, and there were people walking around and stuff. But like, it was very quiet. No one was speaking. And like I think they tried to say hi to somebody and the person kind of like blew them off.
Wouldn't speak to him. Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't speak
Yes.
to them. Um, and they find their dad in a re-education camp and he was beaten but still defiant. And isn't this the part where they don't meet her, but they're in one of the stores and the girl tells them like, we can't talk to you. Like they're looking for you or
Yeah.
it's in
Oh,
this
yeah.
visit back to town, right? And
Like
she
Yes.
finally they
tips
get through to somebody who will actually tell them what
tell
the deal
them
is.
they're
Like,
looking for you.
yeah.
Yeah, yep. Um, so yeah, the dad is getting beaten here. And this is the part, isn't the dad here the dad from Pretty in Pink?
Oh yeah.
I was
Harry Dean
like,
Stanton.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I was like, that's Molly Ringwald's dad. Yeah,
Mhm.
same dad from Pretty in Pink. So,
It was so sad this part though to see
Mhm.
all of
yes.
our people, all of the Americans like in that camp, and it just was heartbreaking.
That really was sad. Like this was still kind of a scary part.
It was. And then when he started like telling them, don't you cry, don't you ever cry again. And,
Yes.
they were crying because of what they were seeing in their dad. And then their dad's like, avenge
Avenge
me.
me.
Avenge me! Like, this is the line from the movie. It
Yes.
is the one that lives on. I had a theater director in Austin, Texas. Shout out Ken Webster.
Hey, Ken
That
Webster.
if we ever got a bad review and like his direction was ever criticized, before we went on stage for the next night's show, he would have us all in a huddle and we might have a toast or we might have a little let's go get him, and he would go, avenge me. That was just
I have
straight
two
out of Red
questions.
Dawn.
I have two questions. Number one, when you guys, and by the way, this wasn't something that my generation did. We didn't play survival games when we were that. I don't really
They
understand
weren't
that.
games. It was
well,
legit.
I mean,
This is real.
y'all weren't surviving homecoming week, but
We
but
just
you know
thought
what
we
I'm
were.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
did.
so is that something y'all would say if you were gathering supplies at that time, like avenge me?
I wouldn't have.
Or was it
No.
like a go-to saying like where's the beef?
Well, I mean, here's the thing though. Like for me and Amanda, we were 7, and so
Right.
we definitely did. But
Well, I know at that time you weren't, but you just said like this is that mantra that came from this. So when y'all
Once-
were doing the survival things, did y'all say it?
when I was with my guy friends, yeah, like every now and then that would come out.
Okay.
Or like
It would
Wolverines.
be like if there was like a I'll be back or Wolverines. Wolverines was probably the
Everybody
tagline.
knows Wolverines. Yeah.
Okay.
We
Okay.
would
And
do
then
stuff like Wolverine.
here's my other question. Not, I'm going to try to get off topic as much as I can with this. But Joey, in all your acting, do you have like a most iconic role or a favorite role that you've had?
What a hard question to ask
Wow.
right now.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
really broad. But I think one of the ones that I did was a one person show called The Atheist.
Ooh.
And the role was originally played by Campbell Scott and then later Chris Pine.
Okay.
And so by the time I played this role, there was literally Campbell Scott, famous actor, director, and Chris Pine, famous actor, and then Joey Hood here in Austin, Texas, doing this little one-person show. And it was really successful. My sister got to come
Fantastic.
see it. My family got to come see it, and I loved that. But that's why probably that one's my favorite.
Well, are you doing anything right now?
I am still doing voiceover work
Okay.
for video games. I
Okay.
play Nightwing and the Batman Who Laughs for the DC Universe online game.
How cool. How
And
cool. Well, the
it's
next
so
thing
cool.
you do, if it's on stage, I think Amanda and I have to come out and do a little research
You
and
know-
development for the podcast.
You know he
Oh.
lives in Hattiesburg.
Yeah.
Oh no, I thought you were still in Austin, Texas.
No, I moved back to Hattiesburg about 3 years ago
lunch
because
is happening soon.
well, here's the deal. We got to make this happen. But after 25 years of doing theater and hustling and going to auditions, I just really wanted peace. And I'm loving
Yeah.
living in the country back in Mississippi.
Yeah.
But technology being what it is, I can still do voiceover work. whenever
Love
I need
it.
to.
Well, I digressed. I apologize. Back to the movie.
Back to the movie. So then we get to the Mason Ranch scene. Okay. So Mason gives them supplies and a radio, but let's backtrack a little bit for this scene, okay?
Okay, because I got a couple of questions about this scene.
I
Yeah.
do too. And is it like decorated for Christmas or was that just my imagination? I was like,
It
are y'all
was-
decorating for Christmas during the occupation?
I think
of the
it was more
communists?
just like home and hearth. Like it was like
Okay.
a fireplace going in.
Yeah, but
but
I feel like
like-
I saw like some tinsel and so I was like, what?
You
Well.
might have. Because listen, when old man comes in, he turns the chair around backwards, he sits in it backwards, he says one thing, and then he stands up, puts the chair back where he got it, and then leans up against the fireplace. Now,
It's a lot of moving.
this way I know, and for no reason. And so this was the first part that I was like, okay, I'm really getting the sense that the director was in a hurry and that a lot of these scenes were shot in 1 or 2 takes and then they would move on.
Yeah, they're like, we
Because
got it. Let's go. Perfect.
Yeah, because it would look like when they would have like a new actor, like a new character in a scene, it would just be like, oh, you get one shot at that, and then we're moving on to the other thing. Because we really need you to sit down and hand them this radio, and then you
stand
got
right
to,
back up.
and then you got to, he stands right back up. Then he goes and gets the radio. He brings it out to Robert. And Robert's like, no, we can't take this radio. Ah, don't you worry about it. I got another one. And so then
Does he lean on the hearth?
he is leaning on the hearth. It's his piece of stage business. It's what he does.
That's probably he's probably doing that to display the tinsel.
Maybe it was.
Well,
Maybe
I have to say this when I'm watching the scene. Of course, I've seen the movie before. I couldn't remember a thing about it, but I was like a little sus about Mr. Mason. I was like, is he
Like you thought he
gonna
was a
be
bad guy?
traitor? Yeah, like I was trying to decide if he was really going to be ending up on the opposite side.
But see, that's the thing. That's the job of the director. The director should have been like, okay, listen, we need you to be like really like Werther's original up in this scene.
Like
Yeah.
the old woman coming behind the tree.
Oh yeah.
earlier.
Like we just need y'all to be the sweetest can be. Because I wondered the same thing.
Okay, good. Okay.
But this is
I
when we
didn't
find out
wonder
about
that. I was just wondering, who is this man?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Is
see,
he one of their dads?
it's like one of 30 million characters in this film that we only see maybe once or twice.
I'm like, is he just
Yes.
this old man living out in the country that
Yeah.
knows these guys? Like, I was like, is he their dad? Is he their grandpa? Like, I don't.
Oh, Amanda, it's the Mason Ranch, okay? If you lived in Calumet, you would know this, okay? That's what they were going for. But okay, so in this scene, like the old man leans on the hearth for like the 12th time, and then Robert, well, before that, he tells Jed and them about Free America.
Free America. Yep.
He basically this is the first time that Jed and the boys learn where they stand in terms of
Yeah.
where the enemy is, what the United States is going through. Like this is when we get a lot of exposition about like, well, this is Free America and you're 40 miles behind enemy lines, young man. That's the first time that happens.
You're in occupied territory.
You're in occupied territory. And then, oh yeah, one more thing. I got some fairly heirlooms I want you to look after. And then old man Mason pops up the floor, and that's when we meet Tony and Erica for the first time. Like his grandnieces or something like that.
For
Yeah,
the
not even his
love-
grandkids, his grandnieces.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
the love of all that's holy, this was not necessary to have these.
It's not.
And why were they hiding them? Like
Oh, here's what I think. Remember, Mason is like, they've been talking about some folks have been getting attacked in town. That ain't y'all, is it?
oh,
So maybe
he
it
wasn't
was
sure
like-
maybe if it was
Maybe he needed to vet them first
Okay,
before he let them know that the girls were there. I don't
Okay.
know.
all right. who
When he
knows?
opened the trap door, it looked like they had been like in Silence of the Lambs. Down
Or
there.
like the movie Prisoner. I thought about that
Yes.
movie Prisoner.
They were like, they look up and they're like terrified.
These girls are so traumatized from the jump. They are trauma
Oh,
personified.
yes. Oh,
And
my
they just
gosh.
don't act right. Like it's
Yeah.
rough.
But
Yeah.
so this is when we meet Tony and Erica, and they are played by Leah Thompson and Jennifer Grey, whom
Two greats.
they're about to become big time names in our worlds.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. They really didn't get to show off their acting chops in this though.
No, we'll talk more about that later.
Okay. The group heads back to the mountains now with Tony and Erica. And this is where I said that scene where he like grabs her by the hand and swoops her up onto the horse, like
Mhm.
very professionally.
Rodeo cowboyish.
Oh, yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. They're trying to adjust to this new way of life. But those radio broadcasts from Free America are a constant reminder that the war is far from over, y'all. Joey, help us understand what's up with these coded messages. Like John has a long mustache and the chair is against the wall. Do you even know or no?
I can only guess. These are obviously like, it's like code and cipher. So if they were to say like John has a long mustache, then somebody who hears that broadcast would have a key that they could reference and like put things together that way. That's the best thing I
Oh,
can come up with. But
okay.
it could be like, on Monday, we're going to take the first letter of every word. And on
Uh-huh.
Tuesday, it'll be the second letter. Like it could be anything. It could be anything. But it was hilarious.
It
So
was a
is this
code
the part
language.
too where they're like all sitting around the fire with the girls and Leah Thompson's like grunting basically, and then she starts like yelling at the guy, or is that later?
Okay, I think this is close to that part. And it's as good a part as any for me to bring up something that I think was really going on in Leah Thompson's mind.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think that when she got this
Wait,
role, she
you mean Leah
wanted
Thompson, the real person or the
the real
character?
person.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that in some part of her interpretation of that character, either she was trying to actually portray part like behavior of a real live Wolverine, or some director. So, there was a lot on the cutting room floor that we missed, because I'm telling you, not only was this child traumatized, she was feral. She was feral.
They,
Yes.
yes, I'm like, there's something wrong with her. Really, both of them. It was so
Well, we didn't even get to hear
strange.
much out of Jennifer Grey, but
I
No,
know,
I
barely
know.
until she died, like
right,
barely anything. Oh, sorry,
right.
spoiler alert. But
They
yes, like she barely had
had been in the
anything.
basement too long.
They have
They had been in the
obviously,
basement
yeah.
too long, and I also felt like Leah Thompson was like fell in love with every boy that she had a conversation with.
Yeah,
It
I
was
did too. I
like
have
an
a couple of
attachment.
questions about that.
Good. We'll ask them then.
I might have an answer about some of those questions. Let's
Oh,
move forward.
yay.
Oh,
Okay, I have a total confession here before I kind of go into this next part, is that it was the end of my watch this time, my rewatch, that I noticed, y'all are going to laugh at me, but that I noticed when they were playing football, back to the football, that I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was Matt, but it may have been Robert, had on the Letterman's jacket that said Wolverine.
absolutely not.
It
You've got to
is.
be
It
kidding
took me
me.
that long to realize why they called themselves the
They even
Wolverines.
said it at one point.
I think it may
I
have been.
probably was scrolling on my phone when they said it.
I think it was on the scoreboard at the beginning too. Like that.
Yeah,
Well,
Was
they
I'm
kind of
thinking
funny.
I
definitely said it.
probably missed it then, but there's a confession from a
Hey, we got
romantic
you.
comedy gal.
Like, I
But
think the communist guys talk about it at one point,
well,
like early on.
yeah.
These
Okay.
Wolverines.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't take long before these Wolverines face their real enemy, their first real enemy. And what happens is a small Soviet patrol stumbles onto their camp, and well, let's just say those guys don't stand a chance. It's the group's first time in combat, and you can feel the shift. Like Robert, especially, he goes from being that quiet kid to like channeling drinking the blood or something, right? Like he is
Oh yeah.
someone you definitely don't want to mess with in this moment.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is like,
mhm.
it's like this little C. Thomas Howell character was written by Joseph Conrad. Like he is about to enter his heart of darkness. That's what's about to happen here. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then like the Soviets, like they retaliate, and they retaliate in a big old way, and they start executing townspeople.
Oh my
This was really sad.
gosh.
Also,
Yeah.
can I ask a quick question too? Because I may have missed this too. In the first encounter with the Soviets, did any of the Wolverines die? I don't think they do they? Not yet.
No,
Okay.
no.
So
They're just running.
I have to tell you at this point of the movie, because like I said, I didn't really remember it. I thought that the teenagers were going to just totally win and overtake the two communist superpowers. Like that's
Yeah.
what I thought was going to happen.
That's what lived in my memory too of this
Me
movie.
too. I was like, oh, this is going to be hysterical because these teenagers are going to take down these communists.
Yeah, because like everything was us versus them, like Rocky versus
Mm-hmm.
whoever.
Apollo.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was
No,
that
but the
kind of thing.
Soviet.
So yeah, they like when they start executing townspeople. It's gut wrenching. Like Matt has to watch from a distance as his dad and Arturo's dad are just gunned down, and it's just it's just something that's so visceral and so stark that you kind of put yourself in that position. It's just like you can't imagine like these two boys. They're boys,
Yeah,
okay?
they're
Yeah, they
boys
are
for
boys.
They're
sure.
You're
boys.
right.
They haven't had a chance to become men yet, and they're watching the two people that are going to usher them into adulthood be gunned down by this completely evil presence.
And isn't this the scene where he brings the mayor out,
He
right, to
does.
watch, and he's standing there in that trench coat, and
Mm-hmm.
the mayor kind of acts like he doesn't know what's going on, and then they get shot, and he's like, oh, like
Oh,
he's
I
like so
thought that mayor was
surprised.
playing both sides of the
I
fence.
thought
Oh,
he was
totally.
too. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm
That
like,
was
how
one of
did
those
you not know
scenes.
what was happening? They were lining these guys up. What do they say? Don't the men say, oh, they sing the Star Spangled Banner or something
Yeah, or
before they
something
shoot
like
them?
that.
Like some
Yeah.
patriotic song they
Yeah.
sing.
It was something big. But like at this point, like this is a galvanizing moment
Yeah.
because when they see this happen, they are not surviving anymore. They are taking the fight to the enemy's front door.
Yes, and they do it with a vengeance. The Wolverines turn into this guerrilla powerhouse, ambushing patrols, stealing weapons, and blowing up supply lines. And this was that momentum where I was like, oh, yeah, they're going to take them down.
Mm-hmm.
They're making a name for themselves, literally, and they start spray painting Wolverines everywhere.
Yeah. Which, by the way, again, I'll just say I thought they were like channeling the inner wolf.
No, it's their high school, just their high school mascot. That's all.
Well, things take a turn.
Gonna say that's what we would have done. Yes.
So I would have been
Warriors!
warriors. Things take a turn when we meet Colonel Tanner, played by Powers Booth. He parachutes into their territory, and suddenly they've got an adult. They've got someone who actually knows how to fight a war. And he gives them the rundown on the bigger picture about what's going on and how the Soviets had invaded through Mexico and Canada and how tactical nukes had wiped out key U.S. defensive. It's a lot. It's a lot, y'all. But
Did you listen carefully to that part?
I didn't. But
Me too.
Tanner does train them to be more effective fighters.
He
Yeah,
does.
he's serious business.
He is, but it's almost like okay, he's a plot device that the screenwriter put in because it's like okay, we could use this character to like give credibility to these young people, like you know, if they're going to have this kind of success in their fighting tactics, like wouldn't it make sense to have you know this character enter the movie that actually teaches them the effective way to fight and how to properly attack instead of just using you know just naked aggression all the time. Like maybe that's what his character was there for.
Yeah.
How did he parachute in?
His plane got shot down,
Oh, okay.
and
That's
so he had
right.
to jump
That's
out.
right. That's right.
So Tanner warns him about you know what this life is doing to them and Robert. Like he you know he's telling them how to fight, but he's also like you know I've been there before, kid. You might want to reconsider certain things about how you're feeling and how you're acting right now. But it's just like you know this whole scene was like I love C. Thomas Howell and I love Powers Booth, but I laughed my butt off when he tells him, you know, all that killing's gonna burn you up inside, all that anger is gonna kill you. And little C. Tommy Howell looks up at him, and what does he say? Keeps me warm. And he's got this little bloodthirsty smile on his face. And what you're seeing there is like, yes, the character Robert is like definitely embracing some of this darkness and this
He's
bloodthirst.
evolving.
He's becoming, as Amanda might say, unhinged.
Yes.
But
Whole thing
he's-
is unhinged.
but he's still the actor C. Thomas Howell is still mid-pubescent, and
Yeah.
his voice is changing. And so you see this character with these doe eyes look up at Powers Booth and say that anger keeps me warm. And it's like, baby, you ain't even had a chance to graduate high school yet.
Totally. I absolutely. And again,
He's not the same kid we saw before.
no, he's not. He's not. Lord of the Flies. Here he comes.
Yes.
Tanner leads them on an intense mission to an enemy airbase. After they've done this training with him and all that, they're prepared for this, you know, bigger, what do you call it?
Mission.
Mission, that's the word. Yes. They rescue prisoners and destroy major targets like it's getting real. But we lose both Tanner and Arturio in the process. Arturio's death hits especially hard because he was really young and still had this like sense of optimism. And I'm
He was
sure
a
they were
babe.
sad to lose Tanner because he was really helpful to get them ready for this attack.
Yeah, he was like
Well,
an anchor.
he was. And I have to just say, Erica is really shaken by Tanner's death. And I was like, was she flirting with him in the field there? And
Yes.
that cheesed me out so much. And then she's taken this death so hard. I was like, does she see him as a father figure? Is she wanting to like snuggle up next to him in the cot?
100%.
Like, what is going on here? What were you going to say?
Well, here's the part where I can tell you I've got a little
Tell me.
background information.
This is where I started being like, what is the deal with this chick?
So when Tanner dies, first of all, I just want to talk about, we see Leah Thompson and she starts making animal noises.
Yes.
As much as I can describe it. When she's reaching toward the camera going, oh, 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 oh. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going on. And then I'm thinking like, y'all just had like a little flirty moment on the football field. Like, what elicits this kind of reaction to the death of Tanner? Yeah. Okay, so in one of the original cuts of Red Dawn, Tanner and Erica, Powers Booth, and Leah Thompson have a love scene.
They hook up. I knew it.
So we're missing so much character development in this that just honestly,
I was like, what in the world?
Real talk, y'all. Even if we had seen that scene, I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't justify animal noises like Leah Thompson was making. But in test screenings, the audiences were so weirded out by the age difference.
I was just about to say,
I was going to say, older.
Yeah. But that's something that we hear about more and more and more in today's society in filmmaking.
Yes.
And in the 80s, even that age difference was so stark that it was noticed by test audiences.
It ooged people out.
Cut. Yeah, it would have ooged me out.
It would have it ooged me out, and we didn't even see that scene for sure.
But don't worry, y'all, because I swear she moves right along to another guy. Like I feel like every time you see her with a guy, she becomes immediately attached. Like it's very strange.
It may have something to do with her uncle, Mr. Mason.
put her in a trap door.
He put her under the floor and made her feral. I mean, come on.
Well, look. There's no doubt that this is all taking a toll on them emotionally and mentally, and it's starting to show in their actions, their decisions, and as Joey pointed out, their grunts.
That's right. And this leads us into a major betrayal, and that is Daryl. Daryl, this is another big turning point. He sneaks off to see his dad, even though Jed and everybody said, don't go back to Calumet. Like, even when they were on the Mason Ranch, he said, don't go back. But Daryl went back to see his dad, and the Soviets make him swallow a tracking device.
Dun, dun,
and so when the group finds out, it is devastating.
And and the way they find out is so creepy.
Like with this little transmitter thing, and they like slowly get closer to Daryl, and the transmitter starts beeping faster and faster and faster, and then it's just obvious that it's somewhere on Daryl. And what does Jed say? Where is it? And this is one of the first times we see Patrick Swayze and with his trademark just seethe.
Yep, he gets ballistic. He gets unhinged.
Oh yeah, he's unhinged. So they have to decide what to do with Robert, and what to do with Daryl. And while we're sitting here looking at Jed seethe, Robert has gone to the heart of darkness, and he just shoots Daryl right there. Yep. There ain't no questions about it.
This part was the part that was really sad to me. Like this was to me really, really like I was like, oh, I didn't think they were gonna kill him. Yeah. When I saw this, I was like, this is taking a turn that I did not know it was going to take. It was not going the way I thought it was gonna go.
I'm wondering how much longer do we have? You know,
by this point, Missy, I think it's only like 10 more minutes.
Okay.
I think it's only 10 more minutes. But like you see Daryl collapse against Robert, and it's all just so devastating.
And very dramatic.
Yeah.
But also I was kind of thinking, like, what else are they going to do with him? Like
Yeah, they had to. Like this,
They,
every second they're standing there, it's just broadcasting to the communists like where they are.
I know.
So
So it was
gotta
really,
move
it was,
on.
I felt bad. And then I thought, why don't you just leave him here alone on the mountain?
But you know what, Missy? You said something very important. A
Uh,
word, dramatic.
oh, oh yeah, dramatic.
Dramatic.
Hmm.
One thing that I thought throughout this movie, watching it from start to finish, is that this is a true melodrama. Like every scene is the height of
Of
emotion.
height, agree,
It is
agree.
the depth of emotion. It is everything is highs and lows, and there's just not a lot of nuance in there. But
No,
yes,
and
very
it wore
dramatic.
my ass out.
Me and you
Well,
both.
all of that melodrama within all that, things are really unraveling. And the Wolverines are barely hanging on, y'all. And the Soviets then come in with these helicopters. And I will say, this is funny. I'm not funny,
I mean,
haha, funny, like interesting, because they're sitting. Remember, this is when the Soviets had dropped the food from the
Mm-hmm.
boxes off the back of the
Mm-hmm.
truck, and they
which
had
I
gathered.
thought was another Mr. Mason thing.
It's a
Like they were
trap.
going to be trapped. Yeah, I
Yeah, I did
did.
too. I did too. But they weren't. They got all this food and they're sitting on the rocks and they're eating their food. And this is the first time we kind of get a little like bit with Jennifer Grey finally. She like
Yeah.
squeezes the orange on Patrick Swayze's head and it's like and so they're eating the food and then out of nowhere the helicopters fly and start ping 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 ping
Was it out of
shooting.
nowhere?
Well, right, maybe that was the trap. I don't know.
I think there was a transmitter in those
Oh,
supplies
oh, I
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
think
maybe.
about that. Sure,
because the
there
helicopters
was. We were
appeared
right.
right after that.
That's right.
That's
See,
right.
that's from your survival learning as a child, you know. But so they attack with these helicopters and it is pure chaos. They're running, they're hiding. And in this part, actually, Tony and Robert, they both get taken out. I think, isn't this where Robert has the rocket launcher and hits one of them? And
Mm-hmm.
he's like so pumped and excited, but they just immediately, then one immediately comes back and shoots him down. But it's really sad too that Tony dies in this part. Patrick Swayze like pulls, she gets shot and he like pulls her under a tree and um she is so, she's so cold and talking to him and he she ends up, I don't really remember the conversation, but basically he ends up handing her a grenade and leaves her there and is basically like, girl, pull the pin when you're ready.
Yep.
Yep.
And like all I could think in that moment, I can't be the only one, but I was just like, is this baby and Johnny in an alternate universe? Like,
I
what's happening right now?
Yes, and I was like, oh, so maybe that's why she didn't want to do another movie with him because he left her to die.
I don't
I was
know.
like, nobody puts baby in a corner.
Nobody
And
puts
nobody
baby under
leaves
a
baby
tree.
without a grenade.
Oh my
Exactly. He's like,
gosh.
well, here's a grenade to keep you warm. Bye. It's like,
Uh,
oh gosh.
well, losing Tony and Robert, it was a blow. And Jed and Matt carved their names into the memorial rock, and you can see they are drained, but they still manage to plan one last mission, and it's going to be an attack on the Soviet headquarters in Calumet to create a diversion. Now, I'm
Dun
not
dun
Okay.
sure
dun.
exactly what it's all about, but Joey, take it away.
No, wait, before you do, Joey, I have to ask this question, and you may or may not know. Missy, maybe you may or may not know. This is where we cut to a part that I literally thought I was watching a Saturday Night Live skit because it is the two communist head men, like the
Yes.
Cuban guy and the Soviet
And the
guy.
Russian guy.
Yeah, the Russian guy in the headquarters of wherever
Yeah.
they are. And all of the sudden, the Cuban guy is like penning a letter to his wife. And it's like, but it's like you can't see his lips moving. He's writing and it's like saying his voice. And it's like, my dearest
It's
Lolita, I miss you every day. My fingers run. Literally, he says something about my fingers holding your beautiful black hair. Is this all worth it? I do not know. I miss you so. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is a plot twist. He's about to go help the Wolverines so he can get back to his wife. No, we never hear or see another thing about it. And it is literally like a Saturday Night Live skit because you can like hear the voice in the background and he's like so serious. Nothing ever comes of it.
It
Am
is
I?
almost
my
like if
gosh.
Jack Handy were writing his voiceover at the end.
Yes.
My love, my beautiful negra-haired love. I am tired of the revolution. And
Yes.
and did you notice that the Soviet guy in the background while they're showing him, he's just sitting back there thumbing through a Playboy?
Yes.
Like,
Yes. He's
Yes,
looking
yes,
at and they're
yes.
like smoking
yeah,
cigars.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Probably the
my
one with
goodness.
Vanessa
That's
Williams in
probably
it.
why he was
So
thinking of his wife. It's because he's been looking at the Playboy. He's like, I
But
better wipe my wife. I'm glad.
is there some did I miss it? Like that really was just a one-off,
that
right?
was
Like
it. But
okay, okay.
let me ask you this question, and I'm saying this uh, to you now, but it probably is something I should have said at the beginning. So I was watching Red Dawn on a very, very popular worldwide streaming service,
Okay.
and all of my closed captions were on.
Okay.
But anytime there was any Russian or Spanish spoken in my stream of Red Dawn, there were no subtitles.
I
Yes, me
can't
too.
remember.
There
Okay,
were
then I
no
guess mine was too.
subtitles
I just
for
don't
it.
remember.
Okay, because we're sitting there and we're listening. Like I was listening to that voiceover of the Nicaraguan general, like talking about his wife, and like I speak some Spanish, so I was able to sort of parse together what he was saying. But
Hmm.
tonally, just what he was trying to convey was just coming out in his voice and his face. So I could sense some weariness. I could sense like he was talking about his lady and he missed her, but that's about all I
It
got.
was so bizarre. Like they should have cut that and kept the Leah Thompson and what's his face hooking up and cut that scene instead.
I
Because I
do
was
not
like,
want
Well,
to see that.
I
it
get
was
it, but
weird.
even Leah Thompson said that that was one of the reasons why she signed up with the film for the film was that love scene that got cut. I don't I don't know what that's about, but she said it.
Interesting.
I
Maybe
guess
she had a crush on Powers Booth.
maybe she did. Let's just move on. So
Because we're
that
finally going to be at the final mission, right? Here we go.
the Missy's favorite part is coming up because well, no, that would probably be the credits, but the final mission is upon us. It's intense. Jed and Matt take on the Soviet base, just the two of them, brothers against all odds. Matt says to Jed at one point, or no, it's Jed says to Matt, he says, being brothers is hard, huh? And Matt says, yeah. And then they go take the Soviet base. They destroy the key targets.
They do a pretty good job.
They do. And I think these two performances were probably two of my favorites. But unfortunately, Matt, played by Charlie Sheen, gets fatally wounded.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. And it all of a sudden cuts to Jed is cradling him in the snowy park. And I'm like, wait, how did they get nobody's knows that they're in the snowy park and they're just like he's cradling him and it's really quiet. And it does say a lot about their relationship and their care for each other and everything they've fought for, of course. And then Colonel Bella watching everything falling apart. Instead of going after Jed, he just lets him go.
He's like, just let him
And
have this moment and go to the park and cradle each
right,
other.
I'm
just
tired.
go.
Yeah, not
Yeah, I'm
each other
tired.
because Matt was
They're
dead.
not going to make it anyway. Um, and it's just interesting, the whole moment, because you can see he's just done with it and I guess ready for the war to end too, which maybe that's supposed to like kind of coincide with the letter to the wife. I don't know. But I
Yeah, I
never
don't know.
got really great clarity there.
It's disjointed here.
It is
But
disjointed.
but the scene
Gaps.
between the brothers is
It's sweet,
I
yeah.
feel it.
Yeah, it's
And the
sweet.
light is beaming down perfectly on
I was
them
just
on the
gonna say
park
it's
bench.
perfectly lit by the
Yeah.
park bench.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Well, the movie finishes with Erica and Danny making it to free America.
I thought you were about to say making out.
Well, Erica's narration at the end it talks about visiting the Memorial Rock where the Wolverines left their names. And there's a plaque that pretty much sums it up because I think now we are back in free America, right? Like
Yeah.
America's back.
Yeah.
You know, I know the brothers played a key role in that. But this is what the plaque says. It says, they fought here alone and gave up their lives so that this nation should not perish from the earth. Dun, dun, dun.
Hey, well, remind me how Jed died. What happened to him?
Uh,
Did he get killed in that last shootout or
I
something?
think it was sort of implied that they were both just going to go down with the ship. And like, I don't ever
Oh,
think that
okay.
we actually saw
We
Jed's
don't
death.
see Jed die. I mean,
It's
Oh, okay.
just
he
Okay.
may
like,
have made it back to Mr. Mason's ranch and living happily ever after in the basement or something. Who knows?
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Okay,
yeah,
just making sure I didn't miss that.
like it was, I don't know, it was really bizarre. But like this ending, like it was, like the ending was where I finally, and not Missy, not just because I knew that it was over, but
Right.
because it was actually kind of a relief. But it was like, because the ending lands like exactly where you want it to. Like you pay tribute to those that have fought, and now there's this monument, and looking forward, we have hope. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And the U.S. is back together, I guess. So
It's
that's
like
what you want.
we're like moving forward, and like it doesn't really sugarcoat anything in terms of like a big Hollywood ending, because after all, everyone dies except for, of all people, Erica and Danny. Like, if it was Survivor and it was the beginning of the episode or the season, like you wouldn't have picked them two out to be the last one
No,
For
standing.
I was just about
sure.
to say that's who we're left with to fill our population is Erica and Danny.
Exactly. And but the whole thing with The Rock, and like it ties the story down to like an authentic sort of heart, like I feel this here kind of a level. But I
Mm.
just really don't think that the rest of the movie earned that.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
It
I
was
agree.
just like, oh my gosh, this ending lands like that ending belongs at the end of a better movie than this one
I would
does.
agree with that. Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. It just really kind of like brings home that, like, this story, this world, this Red Dawn isn't just an action movie. It's about what people are willing to fight for, and what it cost them in the end.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder if it got people riled up,
I think it
like
did.
at that time in that time period. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Like
yeah,
Top Gun did in 1986.
yeah, kind of like that. Like,
Like the
yeah,
Navy used Top Gun as a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
That's how
ooh,
they got a lot of their budget. Was the military provided a lot of these planes
how
because
smart.
we think this is going to be a great story for recruiting for the Navy.
And you've got Tom Cruise, and every person who wants to be in the Navy wants to look like him, and every
Absolutely.
one person who wants to date a Navy
Hmm.
guy wants to date someone who looks like him. I think that the whole movie, that time, Top Gun and Red Dawn, it was a very patriotic time in our country,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
we really did have threats. So
Well, we're not going to say that two-word war that we always say on
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah, yeah,
particular podcast, but it was just ever present in the
yeah.
psyche. And when you had something like this movie that just tapped into that fear in such a really, especially when you're talking about the youth,
Yeah.
because these were high school students, and it was meant to sort of ignite that fervor in young people about, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is a very, very real threat,
Mm-hmm.
but here's what might happen if it happened on our own soil. Like, what
yeah,
might that look like?
yeah.
And what could you do?
Yeah.
Missy, do you remember if this was something that like adults watched, or was it because it's so many young, like the cast is so young?
I don't remember. I feel like it was more, gosh, I hate to compare it to Breakfast Club, but I mean, it was more, I feel like at the time, more young people were watching it
Yeah.
than, adults.
Yeah.
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 This is just like, it was a different telling of Rambo with 10 high school kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
He's so smart.
He is.
Ugh,
So
gives me
then,
too much
okay,
credit.
this, we always talk about this, and I feel like we're kind of there, um, thinking about how it measures up. So, how do we think it measures up on the rewatch compared to when we saw it in the 80s? Or I know I saw it at some point in the 80s, but in our younger years.
Who first?
I'll go first.
Go first.
Well, I think, as I just was saying, there was a lot of patriotism and pride for the country and wanting to defend it in the 80s. And I really think we've come full circle with that now. I mean, we've just had the inauguration. It is a time where people are hopeful about our country. And people are calling themselves patriots again. So although the movie was hard for me to watch because I don't like those type of films, as you know, even though the movie had major gaps in plot, in a way it measures up because of where we are today. That's all I'm going to say.
It
I'm letting-
resonates, right?
Yeah.
I'm letting you go last, Joey, because you're going to have more to say. This is going to be my first time to say it does not hold up for me. I was disappointed in what my memory was of the movie, except for that one scene that was really scary. But other than that, I was like, what in the fresh hell is this? Like, there were just so many gaps. I mean, it was entertaining because I knew it was entertaining to me because I knew I was going to get to talk about it with y'all, and
Yeah.
it was so that would be funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a funny topic, of course,
Right.
but just the melodrama of it all.
Yeah.
I couldn't get on board.
It was a lot.
All right, Mr. Hood.
Well, I'm on board with both of what you've both just said, like it being a melodrama. I believe that we are in another part of, like, in a more evolved state as an audience. You have to understand, the very first talking motion picture, the first talkie, was The Jazz Singer, and it came out in 1927. So here we are in 1984 with Red Dawn. Now, we're listening to a lot of sound effects in Red Dawn that were used on Westerns.
Oh my gosh, please talk about this. This is important. I felt like I was watching a John Wayne movie. I was like, is this John Wayne with the pow?
So fun fact, there's something in back in the day when they were, like, let's say the 50s, they were shooting like, it was really, really expensive to do sound effects. Everything had to be recorded live. And so in 1951, a movie came out called Distant Drums. And it was the very first time a scream called the Wilhelm scream debuted. And what happened was a soldier was going across a swamp and got attacked by an alligator. And they needed a big scream that sounded like, ah, like agony.
Okay.
And so they recorded this scream with a guy named Shep Woolley, who later wrote Purple People Eater, that song. He recorded the first Wilhelm scream. So anytime after that in Warner Brothers, they used a stock scream. Like if somebody got shot falling off of a building, it was ah! And so throughout the years, sound editors, ever since a little movie in 1977 called Star Wars came out, that was the first homage Wilhelm scream. And so ever since then, sound editors have put that scream into movies as a way of giving a wink to other sound editors. It is present in Red Dawn. At the end, when the soldiers are running and the brothers have attacked the Soviet camp and they're on fire, you hear 2 or 3 different versions of a Wilhelm scream.
Wilhelm scream.
And the point of all of that is to say that this movie represented such a turning point, not only in the fact that it was the first PG-13 film, but we were going from an era of stock sound effects and Western tropes into the modern era where we were using live explosions and creating our own sound effects because things were starting to get cheaper. Now, with all
some
of
the gunshots, of the gunshots sounded off.
They sounded way off, and then you would see some people reacting to those gunshots like there were some editing problems. Like it wasn't as seamless as you wanted it to be. But all of that comes together for me to say that this movie just is laughable.
Comedy
from a pure filmmaking standpoint, like they didn't mean to be funny, but they took something that was very, very serious in tone and they did the best they could with it. But there were just parts of it that, like, here in 2025, it's not standing up. But just like you said, Missy, like it does come back around to where we are now with our patriotism has kind of represented itself in different ways. Like now we have Navy SEALs that are on the consulting production to make sure that everything is exactly right, militarily speaking.
Right.
So,
Hey, can I ask one quick question about the Wilhelm scream? Is that how you
yes.
say it? Like, what about Wile E. Coyote? Ah, hoo, hoo. Is that like a Wilhelm scream, or is it
That's
the Wile E. Coyote
honestly,
scream?
you could not have come up with a better example
Look
because
at you, sister.
listen,
Should have
it
been in
wasn't
film.
it wasn't until 1953 when that sound effect went into the Warner Brothers archive, which meant that anybody could use it. So in
Okay.
1953, a character named Private Wilhelm in a movie got shot with a leg in the arrow with a leg in a movie, and they used the Wilhelm scream for the first time. So that's where it got its
Oh,
name. So since all of those Looney Tune characters were all Warner Brothers,
yeah.
yes, absolutely, they used it in
Yahoo!
that.
Heard it
That's
all the time.
hilarious. We learned
Oh,
so much. Thank you. Will you come do another?
please,
I want to be.
please.
I want to be a recurring. You can call me Uncle Joe, and I'll just be a recurring character.
Oh, we would love that. We would love that. Well, all right, y'all. That is a wrap on Red Dawn. And again, Joey, we couldn't have done this episode without you. So thank you so much. It was so awesome having your perspective and insight on this one.
It was my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
And now it's time for clues about our next movie. Let's just say this one shifts gears completely, thank God. No Soviet invasions here, but it's still a fight worth watching.
All right. Clue number 2, Joey, you need to listen up and see if you can guess it, but don't say it out loud. This one's all about turning the tables in a way that'll have you laughing, cheering, and maybe planning your own little revolution.
And clue 3, let's just say some coffee mugs, typewriters, and lots of laughs play a big role in our next film. Think you know what it is? Do you think you know, Joey?
I really don't. I'm clueless
I don't
here.
think he does either. I don't think he does either.
Well, you'll have to join us next week and find out.
You know I will.
Don't forget to check out our social media pages and tell us what you thought about the movie. We love hearing from you.
And if you're enjoying Real Sisters Rewind, we'd appreciate it if you left us a review, a 5-star rating, and hey, share it with your friends. It's a simple way of helping us all keep the nostalgia going.